The cold case that no one ever expected to be solved is, of course, a huge step closer to being solved.
Is the Art of Dialogue asked Suge Knight, did he see the shooter?
I think he's still trying to muddy the water. I think Suge Knight knows who the shooter was.
Suge Knight just dropped a bombshell that left everyone speechless. After decades of silence, the man sitting right next to Tupac when shots were fired finally named the people responsible for the rapper's death, and the names stunned everyone. For 30 long years, fans and investigators chased theories about gangs, street beef, and rival labels. But Suge says the truth is darker because the ones behind Tupac's death weren't enemies from the streets. They were insiders, people he trusted. The same ones who were supposed to guard his life were apparently paid to make sure he never left Las Vegas breathing. In a jaw-dropping podcast interview, Suge Knight opened up about the night of September 7, 1996, breaking the silence he'd kept for years. Instead of dodging questions or throwing vague hints, he finally spoke straight, and what he revealed could rewrite hip-hop history.
He said he saw the shooter, and the shooter works for Death Row.
Even veteran investigators are now scrambling to verify his claims, because if what Suge says checks out, the entire story we've believed for decades was a lie. Suge Knight didn't hold back. He laid it out raw and direct. He said, when it came to us getting shot in Vegas, that was crooked police working with some rat gang members who were mad because Tupac fired them, and they fired back. The room went silent after that. His words hit like an explosion, finally putting a name to the whispers that had floated around the streets for decades. For years, people thought it was random Crips seeking revenge for that MGM Grand fight, but Suge made it clear that wasn't the case. He said it was way closer to home. The people behind the setup were part of Death Row's own security team, folks who knew Tupac's every move, every stop, every plan that night.
I was gonna mention Reggie Wright has been identified by Keefe D. I want to put that out there. And you recently had that was part of your theory with us, that he had something to do.
And then came the real shocker. Suge Knight specifically named Reggie Wright Jr., the head of Death Row's security, as being involved in Tupac's death. This was the same man who had been publicly pushing for justice for Pac all these years, while, according to Suge, secretly cashing in on the tragedy. Suge explained that just days before the Vegas trip, Tupac had fired Reggie and Death Row's lawyer David Kenner after realizing they weren't truly on his side. That firing went down on August 27, 1996, and was documented in a letter written by Tupac's godmother, Yasmin Ullah, at Pac's own direction.
You said that you didn't believe Orlando Anderson was the shooter. Suge Knight basically said that Orlando Anderson wasn't the shooter either. Do you feel like you and Suge Knight agreeing on that one thing?
It's chilling to think the very people who were supposed to guard him might have been the ones plotting behind his back.
Everybody kept saying Orlando Anderson was the shooter. Well, we know Orlando Anderson wasn't the shooter because Orlando's shoulder got kicked out the socket. He went to the hospital, and it was said that by the time he left the hospital and got back to the hotel.
Yet somehow, Reggie was still giving orders, calling security, and claiming he was at Club 662 that night handling business for Suge. But Suge flat out denied that, saying Reggie had no authority to be involved in anything that night. According to him, Reggie wasn't supposed to be anywhere near the Vegas operation, so his presence there looks shady from the very start. And that raises one chilling question. If Reggie wasn't working for Death Row anymore, why was he still mixed up in Tupac's security that night? Who was really pulling his strings, and what was he doing in Vegas after being fired? That firing wasn't just about bad job performance, it went way deeper than that. Tupac found out something that made Reggie Wright Jr. a real threat.
Said that by the time he left the hospital and got back to the hotel, They had him on surveillance camera.
Word got back to Pac that Reggie had ties to law enforcement, and that connection instantly made him dangerous to have around. Former FBI agent Phil Carson even said it publicly. Reggie Wright Jr. was allegedly a confidential informant, someone secretly feeding information to authorities about death row's operations, gang ties, and criminal activity. This wasn't some rumor spinning out of control or internet theory. Carson said it was backed up by official records. Reggie was working with law enforcement while he was supposed to be protecting one of the most infamous rap labels in the game. That's a major conflict of interest, and when Tupac learned the truth, he wanted Reggie gone immediately. Because when you're already being watched by the feds and surrounded by rivals, having someone inside your own team who might be leaking info is a straight-up setup waiting to happen. And here's where things get even more suspicious. Just 3 days after Tupac's death, things started happening that made this betrayal look even darker.
Did he see the shooter that shot him and killed Tupac? And did they work for Death Row? Orlando Anderson never worked for Death Row.
Right after Tupac's death, Reggie Wright Jr. made a move that raised eyebrows everywhere. He reportedly went straight to the Los Angeles Police Department and handed them inside info about Suge Knight, claiming Suge had gang members on Death Row's payroll who were carrying illegal weapons. That single tip sparked traffic stops, raids, and investigations that ended up putting heavy pressure on Suge and even helped land him behind bars for parole violations. Now here's where it gets really suspicious. Tupac was shot on September 7th, passed away on the 13th, and by September 16th, Reggie was already cooperating with the LAPD. That's just 3 days later. It paints a picture that Reggie wasn't some innocent informant quietly reporting what he knew. He was actively helping to tear Death Row apart from the inside. Suddenly, Suge Knight's claim that crooked cops were working with gang members doesn't sound so far-fetched anymore. When you realize Reggie was connected to both sides, the streets and law enforcement, it all starts to make sense.
Tupac Shakur got killed is under the Nevada state jurisdiction. State of California. None of this stuff is fair. Everybody, oh, the FBI came, the FBI, no. None of this is fair.
Reggie had everything: the access to coordinate with police, the street ties to reach shooters, and the motive to do it, because Tupac had fired him and even made it official in writing. That's deep betrayal right there. Yet for decades, Reggie has popped up in interviews and documentaries acting like he was the one trying to save Tupac, when according to Suge, he might have been one of the main people who helped set the stage for that tragic night. Suge Knight isn't holding back anymore. He's calling the whole thing a lie. According to Suge, Reggie Wright Jr. wasn't some helpless bystander that night. He was one of the people who orchestrated the hit.
And a part of that story, you have Vlad coming out saying that he solved the Tupac murder.
Suge says Tupac's security didn't fail because they were unprepared. It failed because it was sabotaged. And the evidence backing up Suge's claim just keeps stacking higher. When you start digging into Reggie's behavior before and after the murder, things stop adding up real fast. Over the years, Reggie has told multiple versions of how and when he found out he'd been fired. In one story, he said it happened during an NFL draft party at the House of Blues in June 1996, claiming Tupac showed up and there was tension about security. But that timeline falls apart once you see the actual letter firing him. It's dated August 27, 1996, 2 full months after that event. So either Reggie's memory is seriously off, or he's lying on purpose to distance himself from what went down in Las Vegas. Suge's version clears all that up. He insists the firing happened in late August, right before the Vegas trip, which completely destroys Reggie's story about June. And if Suge's right, that means Reggie's been twisting the timeline for years to hide how close he really was to everything that happened that night. The way the stories don't match makes it hard to ignore. Something about Reggie's narrative has been off from the very beginning.
Yeah, he says that to Antoine Fuqua, that Reggie's boy cut him off at the last minute and blocked him in. And then the other guy, Trayvon, was on his left.
There's another hole in Reggie Wright Jr.'s story, and this one's major. He's always claimed he wasn't part of the convoy with Tupac and Suge that night because he was supposedly at Club 662 setting up for the afterparty. But Suge says that's pure fiction. According to him, Reggie had zero authorization to be handling anything for Death Row that night. He'd already been fired. Suge says that excuse about setting up the club sounds more like a cover than the truth. If Reggie was really that loyal security chief he keeps portraying himself as, why wasn't he rolling behind Tupac's car? Why wasn't he managing protection during the riskiest moment of the night, driving through the Vegas Strip with fans, enemies, and tension everywhere? Suge's take, he already knew what was about to go down, so he stayed far away to make sure he wasn't anywhere near the gunfire. And Suge isn't the only one saying it doesn't add up. Frank Alexander, Tupac's personal bodyguard who was in the convoy that night, backed up parts of Suge's version. Frank said Reggie tried to get him to lie to police about what happened at the MGM Grand, specifically telling him to say Orlando Anderson tried to snatch Tupac's chain, something Frank swore wasn't true.
I don't believe Suge Knight saw the shooter like all of y'all do. Even Keefe D said, he looked right at me and all of that. I don't believe it.
Frank refused to go along with that story and later told authorities that Reggie had pressured him to change his statement. Even worse, Frank recorded phone calls where Reggie tried convincing him to ignore subpoenas, telling him that if he didn't testify, everything would be fine. Meanwhile, Reggie was publicly claiming he wanted everyone to cooperate and speak up. That contradiction is hard to ignore. Behind closed doors, Reggie was pushing silence, but in front of cameras, he acted like he wanted justice. Suge's accusations suddenly sound a lot less far-fetched when you see how Reggie's actions and words never really matched up. The man who finally tied everything together between Reggie Wright Jr. and Tupac's murder isn't Suge Knight. It's someone who's been shouting the truth from a jail cell for years, and nobody took him seriously. Until now.
Because the man who is now charged with the murder confessed in 2008 that he was involved and has been saying it very openly in interviews that he handed the gun to a guy named Orlando Anderson, his nephew.
That man is Keefe D, the same one currently charged with Tupac's killing. Ever since his arrest in 2023, Keefe has been naming names, and Reggie's is right at the top of his list. In court and during questioning, Keefe has repeatedly said that if he's going down for Tupac's murder, then Reggie Wright Jr. should be facing charges for Biggie Small's death too. He claims both murders were part of the same conspiracy, one fueled by dirty cops, power players in the industry, and people cleaning house to remove anyone seen as a threat. For a long time, everyone brushed Keefe off, saying he was just trying to shift blame. But now, with Suge Knight backing up parts of his story, those words hit different. Because if Keefe's been telling the truth all along, that means Reggie wasn't some innocent bystander. He was allegedly working with both sides, the streets and the system. And that raises the real question. How would Keefe even know about Reggie's supposed role unless he'd actually dealt with him or was hired by someone tied to him? The theory that's now gaining traction is chilling. Tupac's death wasn't just gang revenge. It was a planned hit involving multiple players with overlapping motives. Reggie allegedly wanted payback after being fired and also wanted to protect his secret informant status by getting rid of the one person who found out, Tupac. If this theory is true, then the whole case was never about street beef. It was about control, betrayal, and silencing a man who knew too much.
Keefe's story is that Orlando pulled the trigger and fired the shots into the car which Suge Knight was driving. Tupac was the passenger.
Tupac was killed and Suge was
hit but survived.
According to Suge Knight's latest claims, Tupac's death wasn't just a random act. It was a full-scale conspiracy. He says corrupt cops wanted Tupac gone because the rapper had become too powerful, too loud, and too fearless about calling out police brutality and systemic racism. On top of that, street figures were ready to do the dirty work for cash and clout, and industry insiders, possibly even rivals from the East Coast, were willing to bankroll it all. Tupac alive was a threat to their money, but Tupac gone, that was profit. What makes Suge's revelation hit so hard is that he's not some outsider spinning stories. He's the only person who was right there when it happened, the only living witness who actually saw the shooting and knows who was in on the setup.
The arrest in the Tupac Shakur murder 27 years later really shocked everyone last week, and we still have questions about why now.
For 30 decades, Suge barely talked, dropping vague hints, refusing interviews, and never fully cooperating with police. But now, he's done holding back. He's naming names and pointing fingers at the people he swears helped set him and Tupac up that night in Vegas. Whether prosecutors act on his statements or not is still uncertain. But one thing's for sure, now that Suge has gone public, the truth can't just be swept under the rug anymore. So the big question is, why now? Why wait 30 years to finally expose Reggie Wright Jr. and the others he believes played a part in Tupac's death? What changed that made Suge decide it's time to speak the truth after decades of silence? Something clearly pushed him to break that code, and it sounds like what he knows could rewrite hip-hop history forever.
The shooter, the person who shot Tupac, did you get to see their face, and was this a person that worked for Death Row?
What I would say is this.
Part of it is self-preservation.
Part of the reason Suge Knight stayed quiet for so long comes down to self-preservation. He's spent years in and out of prison, fighting his own battles with the law and calling out a supposed law enforcement informant for murder while you're behind bars. That's risky business. Speaking up too soon could have easily made him a target, both inside and outside those walls. But now that the Keefe D trial is in motion and Tupac's murder case is back under the national spotlight, Suge clearly decided staying silent wasn't helping anyone anymore. The truth was bound to surface, with or without him, so by speaking now, he's finally taking control of the story, putting his version on record and reminding everyone that he's always known who killed Tupac. He just waited until the timing felt right to say it out loud. Another reason Suge might feel safer talking now: most of the key players are either gone, locked up, or facing their own legal problems. Retaliation doesn't carry the same weight it once did.
Well, surprise number one, because I didn't think Keefe D would never get arrested. Nor do I want to see him get arrested.
Reggie Wright Jr. isn't even in the industry anymore, his reputation already shattered by years of corruption claims and talk about him being an informant. The corrupt cops Suge mentioned, they're either retired or under investigation themselves. And the street hitters said to be involved? Most of them are long dead, taken out in unrelated violence or stuck serving time for other crimes. Now, with so many of those figures off the board, Suge's got nothing left to lose and a lot to gain by finally speaking his truth. This time, he's not hiding behind lawyers or silence. He's owning the narrative and letting the world know he's been holding the real story all along. The game has changed, and Suge Knight knows it. The environment around Tupac's murder case has shifted just enough for him to finally speak up without fearing instant backlash or retaliation. But his shocking revelation doesn't just put others under the microscope, it also conveniently helps him too. For years, critics and fans have accused Suge of playing a role in Tupac's death, blaming him for reckless choices, weak security, and the gang ties that surrounded Death Row Records. Now, by exposing Reggie Wright Jr. as the supposed mastermind behind the hit, Suge flips the entire story. He's painting himself not as the villain, but the victim, a man betrayed by his own head of security and even shot in the head while trying to save his friend.
The Suge Knight I know, if he knew a way that he can get on a stand or testify and identify Keefe D and the world don't find out about it, he would do it, but he can't.
Whether that story is completely true or a little self-serving revision, people are now forced to see the case through a brand new lens, and that's exactly how Suge wants it. What can't be denied is that Suge's latest confession has completely shaken up the conversation around Tupac's murder. This isn't just about gang retaliation anymore. Not when the only surviving witness, the man who sat right beside Tupac that night, is saying it was an inside job led by Death Row's own security boss, working side by side with corrupt cops. The Keefe D trial was supposed to be the end of this story, a way to finally close the book by convicting the street soldiers who pulled the trigger. But if what Suge is saying turns out to be true, then the real masterminds are still out there, free, unpunished, and untouched by justice. 30 decades later, the same question still hangs in the air. Will anyone with actual power step up and do something about it? Or will this become just another unsolved chapter in a saga that refuses to die? Because one thing's for sure, this story isn't over yet. Suge Knight has just reignited the fire around Tupac's case, and if his latest claims are just the beginning, what's coming next could be even more explosive.